Friday. It's Friday. Wow. Not the start I was looking for. It's Friday. It's 2:00 somewhere. And we're going to do a little Connect This. The show is more thought out than the intro. And I'm excited. I'm Chris Mitchell from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance in St. Paul, Minnesota. And apparently Aaron's going to be here for the whole show rather than popping in and starting off backscene. So welcome, Aaron. You're getting thrown in. We are going to talk about a bunch of fun things. We got a little bit of stuff to kick around at the beginning, but I want to tell you right now, this is not a show to leave early from, because at the end, Rye is going to share some excerpts from the upcoming AI-generated biography of me.
Oh no!
Which went interestingly.
Can I order some advanced copies of this AI biography?
We're gonna save it for the end though, so you guys stick around for it. That was Kim. Kim is the pioneering first mate on the C Fiber construction firm TAC Starboard Band.
Well, yet again, it is TAC Broadband, and I am just one of many, and we're doing some amazing things. Not this though, so let's keep moving on.
Right, this is all Kim. TAC is not associated with this. We've got Doug Dawson from CCG Consulting. Welcome.
I'm also not associated with this.
And then Travis, who is associated but is trying to figure out how to change that. Travis Carter from USI Fiber. Welcome.
Well, I'm only associated by geography. Chris knows where I live. So did we give up on broadband peekaboo thing that we did?
No, we actually have one today. So the question is whether we've prepared one or not. And we do have one. We also have our guest today. We've got Aaron Hildreth. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Thanks for having me.
We invited Aaron on to talk about open access type stuff, and Aaron shared that he had not been on a podcast before, so Rye decided to throw him in for the full banana rather than just coming in toward the end. And I see Rye. I'm the only one that can see Rye, so I see him shaking his head. Aaron, I'm excited to get your perspectives on some of these things. We're gonna have fun, and we're gonna talk a little bit about bets first. Let's see. It's been 5 weeks since Travis said Starship would launch successfully within 6 weeks. So 1 week left, Travis, before you expire, and then we're going to be in a what's the purgatory while we wait, because I said it would be more than 6 months. So basically you lose soon, but I have to wait a lot longer to lose.
So when did we start tracking our bets here on Connect This? When Chris thinks he could win, is that when we start tracking the bets?
Yes, that's the only time.
This might be his first win ever. Well, they did dry fire yesterday, which was a good, a ground fire, so that was good.
I saw that they set that up. Yep. And we'll talk a little bit about some other satellite stuff here in the show. But I also wanted to share that last year I said that Elon and Trump's romance would come to an end in May. It looks like I think I'm going to be wrong. It looks like Elon is stepping back from the federal government. But I just wanted to throw out there that
what
I don't
was the
think
rest
I've won
of our
bet.
bets? What were the rest of our time period? Since I don't remember.
Well, so most of them haven't come. We'll evaluate them at the end of the year. Most of them are more like things that'll come up later on. But I thought I'd pick a couple that can be evaluated. Doug said it would be in June, so we'll see. I think Kim and Travis both thought it would be longer before there was any kind of big breakup. So, but I'm saying that I would say that I probably, if Elon just moves back into focusing more on the private sector, I wouldn't consider that a breakup. So I think I'm probably about to lose this bet. Finally, Kim and I were hanging out in Ames, Iowa recently at the C-Band Community Broadband Action Network event, and had a good time. And I'm at least going to AAPB. I don't know if Kim's found a good excuse for why she can't go now, but the American Association for Public Broadband is having an event in 2 weeks in DC, and a few of us are going to be there.
It's good. Well, first of all, good to see you in Ames, Iowa. I was actually more excited to see Rye, but I mean, you were okay too. But it was a great event. Met a lot of people, a lot of the co-ops and some of the ILECs who are doing some amazing things out there as well. But yeah, no, I had fun, and Who knows what my travel schedule looks like, Mr. Mitchell? It is not on my travel schedule as of now, but you never know with me. You never know.
Well, Travis, I'll tell you this. I talked with some of the people who were there. Some people were a little bit newer to the industry. Some people have been there for a long time. And multiple people told me that Kim is an inspiration to them, especially like younger and women that were entering into the telecom space. Were very inspired by Kim.
Kim who?
Yeah. We have some
Kim is
peekaboos lined up.
amazing, and if you've never seen her operate in a large group of bankers, it is a sight to hold. I will try to get video next year at Metro Connect. Yes.
You're going to Metro Connect next year. I can't wait to see you.
Well, now I've committed
there.
myself to being your photographer. So yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's pop up the peekaboos. We got some fun ones here, and we got one coming in. Where in the world were these telecom photos taken? I'm going to guess that this one was on train tracks, but I think that's not the answer we're looking for.
Oh, right. Yeah, because that was what I was going to say. I don't know.
Well, the install is amazing. I see, huh?
You get any hints here?
Wiring.
I'm kind of
Could this possibly be Utopia?
Well, I don't work there, so it could not get it.
I'm going Italy.
Albania.
Yeah, who was on a trip?
It was Rye. And yeah, Travis nailed it. And in the chat, Nick picked it out.
Well, now we know. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Go to Rome.
Yeah, here, scroll back a couple, would you? Right. Okay, so a little wireless access. All right, a little. I can't. Do you think that's in production? Wow. All right, keep going. Yep. There you go.
We started as a WISP, and this looks pretty typical. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Isn't Italy one of the ones in which the incumbent operator has gone open access by choice? Doug, do you know by any chance?
Not everywhere. The answer is, yeah, the state telecom is, but they didn't control everything. It's a hodgepodge like most countries. Yeah.
Okay.
Or is that St. Paul, Minnesota? That kind of reminds me of somebody's neighborhood.
Oh no, we have and Rice says that the one that was a mess was in a tunnel. St. Paul, the ongoing joke is, St. Paul's like the little sibling to Minneapolis. And so we always joke that we've got like stables and horses meandering around. It's a little rough and tumble over here on the east side of the river. All right, we're going to jump in. And the first thing we want to do is actually just congratulating Ruben. So I don't know if Ruben's in today. Sometimes he starts up. No, there he is. He's clowning on Telepop being like a great band name. Ruben, we saw your post. Congratulations. You're getting fiber. And you are celebrating the work it took. This is an effort in rural Maine where local committee of folks did the work to make this happen. State program really helped out to bring it to fruition. I'm a little distracted now because we lost Aaron for a second and now we lost Doug. But Doug's back.
Don't you worry. I've been here the whole time, but why you get your words back in your mouth? I'm just upset you didn't preview this so I could go find my Reuben mug downstairs somewhere in the chaos.
Yeah, it should always be close.
Way to go, Travis. Way to one-up me right there.
Mm-hmm. And look at my Reuben mug has now become the home for my Roku remote and my favorite pen. So, thank you, Reuben.
It's actually very funny you say Intellepop was a great band name because the domain originally belonged to someone trying to start up a pop record label. And so it was Intellepop, but it was not really doing anything. So we waited for 10 years to buy the domain. So if you see my email.co, that's why. We finally bought it from him just a couple of years ago.
That's nice. We, after almost 20 years of this program, we finally got communitynetworks.org and had to be super disinterested in it for a while to be able to get them down to a reasonable price. So I'm familiar with that.
We actually had to buy the guy a guitar. It was Queensryche. Do you know the band? He said, "Buy me this guitar. The domain's yours." Never spent that much on a guitar. It was like $7,000, but it was totally worth it.
That's the way business should be done, though. I like that.
Harder. Yeah.
So let's lead off with a project. And Doug, I don't want you to jump in right away because I know that you've said this before, but I want to see if other people know. The project from Amazon to put satellite up in orbit. How do you pronounce it?
Kuiper.
Anyone else? What'd you say?
I thought it was called Kuiper.
Kim?
I'm a good Southerner, so I have to pronounce all of the syllables. So I was like, Kuiper.
Aaron, do you have any sense of that?
I have no idea. I'm not gonna lie.
Pass. Yeah, I mean, it's named after the Kuiper belt. So yeah, Travis nailed it, Kuiper. This morning, and this is not the reason, we're going to talk about it more substantially in this, but this morning I woke up way too early. I was struggling. I put on the Pivot podcast, Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. I think it's a really good show most of the time. And she convinced him it was Kuiper. And I was just driving crazy because they kept talking about how this Project Kuiper. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on, people. Also, they think apparently it's going to be available to everyone on the planet very soon, which is deeply confusing for them. But Project Kuiper has launched. Travis, what's going on with Project Kuiper?
Well, just so everybody knows, because Chris is always the oddball technologist, Chris has already signed up and is waiting for his Kuiper dish to arrive. So, yes. So his Windows phone and his Zune media player will now be stuck with Kuiper.
Oh, so this is, can we put this down as a prediction? Will Kuiper be relegated to history as an also ran? Is that what you're predicting?
It'll be a second tier, yeah. It'll be there, but yes.
You don't think it's like I had this question when I was reading the article. Do we not think do we have any sign that Starlink is going to slow down, or do we think that Kuiper can speed up, or is it what it is of how many satellites you can launch on this whole front?
There's a big difference. Kuiper is basically putting pretty majorly sized data centers in the sky versus Starlink is taking the smaller satellite approach. Theoretically, they will have a lot more capacity than you would think with 3,000 satellites, but we'll just have to see.
Okay.
I mean, Starlink says 30,000 satellites, which is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, but I mean, on how many people they can serve, right? Because
Well, I think that's where supposedly Kuiper should have somewhat of an advantage because they're launching larger satellites to higher orbit. Now, the question then in my mind is at a certain point you can just see more people than you can actually connect effectively. But Travis tracks this more closely.
Well, I guess the question is how much spectrum is allocated to Kuiper versus Starlink. That's what it comes down to. And if you have, let's just assume you have the same amount of spectrum allocated to each provider, and one provider has twice as many satellites, they're going to have potentially twice as many subscribers. And
the actual limiting factor is the ground stations, because that's the up and down.
Well, that's the other thing is if you get enough ground stations, but Musk has, he's got the lifting capability. All Bezos can do is do some space rides. So,
but I think, and Travis, I think your point is that the thing that is not in their control is the spectrum. I mean, to Doug's point, ground stations are within their control. They can adjust that, so they could account for it, you'd think.
It's kind of ironic how when we talk about LTE, cellular, fixed wireless, it's spectrum. And
I think we've seen far more deals with the states and BEAD for Kuiper than we have for Starlink. I mean, Kuiper, I think, is registered to bid in like 18 or 20 of the states. I mean, it may not be effective because Jeff Bezos didn't buy the access to the presidency, but it certainly seems like we're poised to be more successful in the BEAD program as it was designed.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, it always comes down to price, right? So we'll see.
Do you think there's going to be a price war, Travis?
I don't think so. I still subscribe to the Doug Dawson school of broadband, which says $100 is what it's going to be.
I agree that it's still going to be $100, but I do think it price checks Starlink and Kuiper by keeping them around the same price point. I don't think it's going to be a race to the bottom, but I don't think anybody can come out with a $200 price point anymore on that stuff either.
No, and
Kuiper says they're going to do affordable, but they don't say what that is. I think it's going to be bundled with Amazon stuff, and that's how they'll make the price look look low. So
Do
we'll
I get
see.
do I get internet with Prime now? Is that what you're trying to say?
That's what I'm thinking they're going to do. Something like
But
that.
there's an
Yeah.
interesting question, which I think is sort of the edge of where we'll go with this. But that said, I don't think Amazon wants people in deeply rural areas to be on Prime. Amazon doesn't want to ship to
No.
people in deeply rural areas. So I'm curious to see how they play this.
Well, let's not forget people that, at least the people I've dealt with, they're replacing their DirecTV dish or their Dish Network television dish, which they were paying hundreds of dollars a month for $150 Starlink dish. They're actually saving money, and they're tickled pink about it.
Yes. Yeah. No, I've
Yeah,
never said that. I think that the HughesNet's contracts, all that stuff was.
Yeah.
I think Starlink has always been a massive improvement over what people have been stuck with before.
Mhm.
I got into trouble once on a panel. From a person from HughesNet was very, very upset with me and told me so in no uncertain terms. She was going on about how HughesNet was this great solution. It was really important to be part of the mix, and it should be included in federal subsidy programs and this and that. And I said, internet access is something that people really, really want all over the world. And across the United States, there are millions of people who have to choose between HughesNet and nothing, and they choose nothing. And she didn't think that was the nicest way to go about making my point.
You know what really starts a fight, Chris, is when you insult them directly to their face. I'm just saying.
Everyone else was thinking it. Someone had to say it. That's my position. But we can move on. I want to bring Aaron into this. Aaron, I am curious. Do you? I know that you are an operator on Utopia. Do you have facilities that you operate on your own elsewhere as well?
Yes, we started as a wireless internet service provider, and we have several thousand customers on a network here in Utah as well. So we started with that, and then I'm not using the word pivot, but we expanded our market presence by really putting some effort into Utopia.
Yeah, I feel
And
like
you're on other networks as well, or working with other networks as well. So not just Utopia.
And I think we're gonna turn to this in the second half of the hour. But Aaron, I'm curious, in that work that you were doing, does the fear of a fine from the FCC motivate you or concern you when you're making different decisions about any aspect of running the business or building the network?
It depends on the dollar amount, is the honest answer. If it's 3 or 4 digit, no. But
Doug, my impression is that Aaron no longer has to worry about any fines.
Well, no, I put that in a blog, and 2 days later, the Second Circuit Court said that the exact same case where Verizon was involved, they don't see a problem with letting the FCC have fines. So what he's talking about is the FCC. The Fifth Circuit Court said that the FCC had no authority to fine AT&T when AT&T sold everybody's private location data from their cell phones. And so Verizon took the exact same lawsuit to a different court, and it looks like they're gonna uphold the FCC fines. So now we're headed towards the Supreme Court showdown to see which one of those opinions wins. So the FCC actually believes they should be able to fine, so they're siding with the Second Circuit. So yeah.
If the FCC loses the ability to fine, I think it will be very hard to justify its existence. Like if it literally it doesn't do anything well, and now it can't actually punish anyone for violating their rules.
Correct. No, it's even worse than that, because what the Fifth Circuit said is that the FCC doesn't have the authority to even find that somebody did anything wrong, because that's acting as the judge. That's what a court suit's for. So all they can do is take what the Fifth Circuit insinuated was you have to take all the facts and hand it off to a court.
Does that mean
and maybe they'll prosecute and maybe they won't, right?
Like, is this where I can say that I don't like that the IRS wants to charge me taxes because they can be the judge and jury, and I can go to another organization? I mean, like, at what point do we
according to this lawsuit, I don't know that they could if this won. Yes.
Like, at what point do we not have rules? And because I was reading this article that I was like, does everything go to the Supreme Court before we can decide anything anymore?
Well, I certainly think your tax penalty should go there. What did you do wrong, Kim?
I want to bring us over to the importance of getting construction right. This is something where I think we can all weigh in. There's a story that Travis had shared. He was looking for a place to move in Albuquerque, and I was looking for a fiber location. Saw this story about neighbors organizing to basically stop a fiber installation until a company kind of makes good on I don't know, some damage it had done to others. Or I can never tell if these are legit things. I mean, we talked before about my belief that people should say what they mean and be honest, and then you all laughed at me. And so, like, I don't know, sometimes these are just things where neighbors that don't want anything to change in their neighborhood get together and they concoct some scheme. So I thought it'd be a good chance to talk a little bit about getting construction right. Kim, when we talked in Ames, one of the things that you had said was, like, when you were motivated to come over to work at TAC Broadband, that you you really thought that the importance of the construction can set up a network up for success or failure that early. And so I'm curious if you just want to talk briefly about that.
Yeah, like I think these things happen. It's not that these issues don't occur, and I think that Travis can speak to this as well. They occur every day. It's about how you resolve them, and I think that is some of the half the battle. Good construction techniques are very important as well. But the thing is that if from an ISP's perspective, when I was on that side, is that if I didn't have construction and was like going right and being a partner in that solution, I would have never achieved some of the take rates that on the Utopia network, not in a million years. I've seen networks that have everything almost the same, and only the difference is construction. And I've seen a 20% take rate differential at the same time period. Is because people do not, like, in
What's
this
the causal
industry, we
mechanism?
forget that.
What's the causal mechanism there?
It's because, like, you get irritated at the ISP that you don't respect their time and you don't respect their property. So why would you sign up for service and go out of your way to pay them? I think that people don't understand the first impressions on the construction side are so crucial to the overall take rate. And I don't know, I would love to hear your point on this, Travis, to see if you've seen the same things.
Well, I think, Chris, your gut feel is probably more accurate than not. Where, I mean, you got to envision a lot of these neighborhoods that are being constructed now have never had any significant level of construction in them in most people's lifetimes. You know, the water, sewer, gas have all been there. It's just been ad hoc repairs home to home. So now you come through and you're doing major construction. There's just those people that are just not happy for anything, and so the restoration isn't fast enough. You irritated something, and you just have to deal with it. So I can't say specifically what's happening here, but you're going to get people that complain no matter what.
Well, in that case, I mean, there's like, hey, you trampled my begonias. In this case, there's also, like, they hit a natural gas line as well, and that freaked a bunch of people out.
Yeah, the gas
that happens every day. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it happens every day.
Yeah, gas really scares people. And you talk to the old time gas, people that work in the gas industry, they'd be down in a hole with a cigarette working on the gas because it's under such pressure, it can't ignite. But the issue is the cities now, at least up here, where if you used to hit a gas service, they just fix it. Now they bring the fire department out, they shut the street down. I mean, they make a big circus out of it. Necessarily or unnecessarily, I can't tell you, but it's just, people don't like to be disturbed. I've had people that have complained that we've left a car idling outside of their house for more than an hour, and that, off to the phone they went.
Oh yeah, no, I so many stories, but I want to give Aaron a chance to weigh in too. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I was going to say one more thing. I think you have to take the difference is there is good construction practices and bad, but at the end of the day, on every construction project, there's going to be issues. And yet again, I will say, from on the ISP side, I got better long-lasting customers from something going wrong and it being fixed within like 24 hours than I did anywhere else or any other kind of marketing.
Yeah, I've heard that before, where, like, you're proving that you actually care, and that gives you an opportunity. So, Aaron, I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on this, even if they're just, man, I'm glad I'm not dealing with gas lines.
Definitely glad I'm not dealing with gas lines. Just agree with everything Kim here is saying. We haven't constructed fiber, but when we build wireless, you get the folks that approach you and be like, "Is this 5G?" And I'm like, "No, it's not quite how this works." And so you talk to them, you build a relationship, and they might be upset with it. But no, when you talk, you build that reputation in the neighborhood down to the street level, that pays dividends. And I think that's why we've had so much, staying power in our wireless market.
Doug, do you think you should go back and just focus on construction rather than the front end design and stuff like that?
I think it's construction. I agree with Kim completely. I've seen 1,000 projects, and the ones that are most successful, there's somebody there who doesn't go home on the day a problem comes up, so they talk to that homeowner. That's how you keep it under control. And so, that has to be a part of your construction process, or you're just dead. So, and I also agree with Kim. The network owner's got to be part of that process. They can't hire a contractor and not pay attention to them. That's a recipe for disaster. 'Cause the contractors, to their benefit, hire a lot of subcontractors who are not ethical people. They're there to get things done as fast as possible. So you have to have somebody overlook them. So, yeah.
So one of the times my parents got connected recently, they'd moved recently to be closer to me, which is just very odd behavior. And they got Comcast.
Do they know about your bet history or any of this?
I owe them so many wings at this point.
Oh.
They had a new line put in from Comcast because the previous person had a DSL. Amazing. And the Comcast guy put in an orange line coming down the pole, and a neighbor called in and was like, does that have to be orange? Like, I'm looking at that on my window, it's distracting us. Like, and Travis had told me one time, like, I think people just want to be heard, and that's the person that doesn't have a problem. They just want to be heard. And so you got to hear them, right? I think that's what we're talking about.
Well, let's also not forget, and I always bring this up, people don't understand the concept of the public right of way. In here in Minneapolis, they shovel the snow, they mow the yard, they do all these things, and they really don't own that property, and that's really surprising to a lot of folks. So, but you are right. I mean, resolve the issue. I mean, I can't tell you the number of things we've bought or fixed to make amends for any kind of construction issues there were.
All right, we're going to do the last topic before we jump into open access. And that topic is something I've been wanting to squeeze in for a while. Urban cellular coverage. Doug, you wrote about this. This is something that I complain about on the regular.
I'm not going to talk about this unless Aaron buys me a guitar. So.
You get yourself in there and would get your eyes on a nice Gary Clark Jr. guitar.
You betcha, baby. No, people who live in cities sort of realize that, but about 20 to 30% of all cities have absolutely atrocious cellular coverage. They just do. There's almost no city that doesn't. And there's two reasons for it. One is just the natural building, cell circles. There's just places where they don't cover very good. But the other reason is if you actually plot the cellular coverage, it's all along the highways. And if your neighborhood's 8 blocks off the highways, you don't have good coverage. And you go, well, why does this matter? And the reason it matters is 15% of people still don't have broadband. They use their cell phone. You go, well, heck, when you're home, you just put yourself on a Wi-Fi. Well, not if you don't have broadband, right? And so there's all these folks who have only used their cell phone for broadband, and the cellular in the middle of a city doesn't work in their house at all. Just because cellular coverage in houses is about half of what it is outside your front door. It's really bad anyway. So it's really amazing. Cities who pay attention to this, there are ways to fix it. And so the way to fix it is for the cities to invest in helping the cell carriers put in more small cell sites. I mean, they have to put some money into the pot.
Who's they? You mean the cities have to put some money into the pot?
Cities have to put some money in. The cellular companies are not going to fix it on their own. They know these problems. They have absolute detailed maps of their coverage, and they don't care unless but they're willing to work with you if you give money. Right. So,
Travis, how do you feel about the city of Minneapolis helping T-Mobile to encourage their small cell sites so they can take a few more of your subs for 2 months?
Well, I mean, I guess the Aaron kind of touched on it. The bigger issue is the neighbors really fight against small cells in the neighborhoods. They come out with their tinfoil hats on and They think that they're getting radiated in.
Some do. Some have legitimate concerns. I mean, when going on South Minneapolis, you see suddenly a pole taller than the trees. It is disconcerting. I mean, there's. So I have some agreement with the aesthetics. Though tinfoil hat people drive me nuts.
No, I agree with you. And, and technically, the small cells, even though they call them small, there's still a lot of stuff on the poles. It's not like a lot of just wireless stuff. So, yeah, I don't really know the ideal solution other than the fact that I think what you're going to see in the future is significant investment by the carriers in fiber networks so that they can do all that Wi-Fi offloading of all those calls and try to bundle up like we talked about earlier. So it's just my assumption.
When you say the Wi-Fi offloading, I'm presuming that, like, how is that happening? Is that me doing a Wi-Fi call rather than using the Verizon Spectrum, or is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think what is T-Mobile? What do they call it here? Yeah, it's like whatever their Wi-Fi. It connects to it uses your internet connection to make your calls instead of the Spectrum.
Yeah, but if you don't have internet in your house, you're just kind of left out of that. So.
Right, but enough people do, I think, that they can then preserve that. But Doug, what I liked about yours was you specifically outlined cities like collecting the data to know where the problem is and then acting on it. And that's the part that just I want to see. I mean, I don't want to see municipal handouts to like these incredibly profitable, massive companies. But at the same time, like I agree with you in that, like you got to get the job done. We need better connectivity, and so they need to develop a plan and work on it. And so that posts, includes some of what you did, and I'm hoping that we see that elsewhere too.
I'm working with a few cities who are interested in paying to fix the problem. So, yep.
What's the range of cost for that? Like, I mean, not like on a roughly like, it costs like what, like $25,000 to $30,000 to put up a small cell. I think, like in that neighborhood. I think is that roughly.
Well, one of the cities I'm working with is just going to put in free fiber connection to the small cell site. So that's their contribution is free backhaul to get to the carrier networks, and so that that gets rid of that problem. So yeah, I don't know any cities yet who are actually paying for the small cell sites. But that would be on the table for discussion. Yeah. So
okay. Any last comments, Kim or Aaron? Any thoughts on this discussion?
No.
Do you want to? Should we give you some time to think about it?
No, because I'm not going to come back this time. Because usually I do, so I'm just going to stop.
You do.
Yeah. I think you're underestimating the cost, Chris. I'll just put it that way. Just to sink a pole and bring power to it, you're talking about $10,000. We haven't put any electronics on it whatsoever. So, and we haven't brought fiber to it. So it's so to do Wi-Fi offloading would be a substantially less expensive thing than putting these every other block.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Because I mean, that's where I'm just trying to I feel like one of the things we can do is try to put some numbers to things that no one else does to give people a sense. Because I think, if you tell a city like, hey, you need to do 25 small cells and you resolve a majority of your problem. And that's going to cost you $10,000 per pole for $250,000, depending on the size of the city, to get significantly better coverage. That may actually resolve some of the issues they have with their own employees moving around town on hotspot devices and things like that. That could be a good investment.
Well, that's actually the first city I work with, what drove them there was there were dead spots where police and stuff couldn't get. First responders couldn't get connectivity. So that's what led them to even look at it. So, yep.
Yeah. And I mean, just the fact that we talked about this in community broadband bits this week, we focus on Netflix and cat videos historically, right? But these are emergency networks, and having connectivity throughout the city that works well will ultimately save lives, even if it's just people having to call 911 or be safe in a variety of ways. So, sometimes I feel like we don't talk as much about how this is life and death, and getting it right is important.
It is. However, people don't know that what they're missing to the end of the show with your AI bio. So.
Yes. Yeah. No, in fact, no one's going to leave. So we can just throw in all the vegetables we want now to force people to listen to it. And I'm sure people won't be smart enough to just skip ahead. So we're going to talk about open access. We got Aaron here, who's with IntelliPop. We have one specific question, and then we are going to get to talking about Kentucky Wired, which is an interesting challenge. They're on an open access network. It's slightly different than Utopia. We'll talk about that. But Aaron, Kim had, actually Rye originally got a question from someone who watches the show, who asked about open access networks. And it was just perfectly timed because Kim had just run a panel at Ames, Iowa, at the Community Broadband Action Network. And it was really a great panel. despite Kim. Really, I mean, the guests really had to like cover for her, and in that this question came up exactly, which is that if you have an open access network, is that going to create a higher take rate because you have different ISPs competing? And so Kim offered an answer. I know what that is. I'm curious what yours is, Aaron.
So come right out and say, I don't think more is better. Now, everyone's first thought is you don't want the competition, but I would counter that with, we came to the Utopia party, I'd say 10 years late, competing with now 21 providers. And we just found out we're one of the fastest growing ones on the network, and we're one of the top 5 largest, despite starting later than everybody else. So I don't think more is better. I think it's a quality over quantity issue.
Have you thought about putting a free song on people's Zunes in order to market yourself?
Well, first of all, nobody ever uses a Zune anymore except for Mr. Mitchell. But coming from the other side, who when I used to work there, you didn't see, like, even though like somebody like IntelliPop was growing rapidly on the Utopia network, you didn't necessarily, you saw an incremental increase on the take rates, but not to the point where you're going to get to an 80 or 90% penetration rate. And so I think that's what a lot of people I've heard in the industry say to me, is that the more ISPs, that means that the more variety that you have, that means that you're going to get deeper penetration. Well, they're forgetting to think that there's major incumbents in those areas who are also competing against almost one network. And on average, it's about 33% take rate for everybody in those, for like if a city with 3 competitors. Is that everywhere? No, you see the outliers, but I would say when you have at least like decent competition, you're going to see about those take rates.
Kim, do you remember when Brigham City joined Utopia? There was a pretty innovative financing project at the time that did that. And you had Brigham Net, which had a lot of local. Did they bring more people onto the network? Is that like, was that a more successful city with them having that local rootedness?
Oh, I would say that the reason that you see success is some of the local presence of some of the providers. I think that on open access networks, and this is not just Utopia, this is me having conversations with other people, the local providers in specific cities, when they jump on them, usually have a greater success because they have brand awareness in those cities, unlike others. I mean, you saw that variety on the Utopia network, that some cities had more, you could see which the ISPs had more of a local presence or brand name versus other cities. So yeah, I think it's very much granular on the ISP side, but I wouldn't say on the quantity side.
Yeah, and I've worked with a lot of open access networks, and a lot of them have, they don't have as many as Utopia with 20 or 30, but they'll have 6 or 7 providers on there. But if the local folks never heard of any of them, then they all have a challenge to be the new to be the new entrant to the market. So I've not seen those kind of open access networks do any better than one ISP. In fact, they probably don't do as well, because when one ISP builds it, they put more effort into marketing than the 6 little guys do. And so I don't see the advantage there. Long run, it's probably equal. Long run, you're going to end up getting everybody who wants you, but I don't see that instant advantage of it. So,
Aaron, I saw you nodding along there. That the sort of that local presence.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the data internally, but where we started our WISP was right next door to a Utopia city. And you can see like a radiating pattern of our customer penetration just from where our offices are. We can sell all across the state now. We have customers across the state, but our largest penetration of Utopia customers are in the cities in our surrounding area.
I think that's what one of the things that is missed is not just open access. I think this goes across the whole ISP gamut, and I would be interested in Doug's answer on this. But I think it's that what people are getting wrong right now, where these networks are struggling with take rates, I don't think it's a marketing issue. I think it's a branding issue of that people don't understand the brand names in the areas.
I don't know what that means.
Like, that means that you don't know the company. Like in Minneapolis, people know USI Fiber, right? But it's taken you probably how many years, Travis, to get to where people actually know who you are. And I think if you have brand recognition where you know them, then you will, like, more people will be apt to sign up for them.
Let me just push it on that. So is marketing basically the activity then of increasing brand recognition? I'm just trying to figure out the sort of
branding and marketing. Branding usually falls under the marketing department, but it is also one of the, as you just kind of articulated, it's very hard to articulate what brand really means. It's kind of like people always say it this way. Why does Coke still put any like marketing dollars in there, right? Because they want to keep their name out into the public. So people will, when they go to a store, they recognize the name and then they keep buying the product because everybody knows what Coke is, right? But they have to continue to get their name out there. It's about getting your name, keeping your name in the game. But it does fall under the marketing realm. But I think it is one of the things that most networks I am seeing right now are really struggling with. I think there's some really good ones out there. I think Lumos has done a heck of a job with theirs. I think Brightspeed has done a really good job of getting their name out there. Some of those tier 2 players that you're hearing more and more, Google Fiber, even USI, I'll even give a shout. Or Glow Fiber, yeah.
No, Go Fiber.
No, is it Go Fiber?
It's G Fiber, but I pronounce it
G Fiber. Oh yeah,
Fiber.
yes, Go Fiber. Yes.
Yeah. I think it would do really well in Brooklyn. It sounds Yiddish. Travis,
I don't think they said Go Fiber.
No, they don't. I do. I'm trying to make it a thing. I'm trying to brand it for them. You're welcome. Travis, Kim mentioned Coke. I'll say that I used to be a Pepsi fan, but I'm back on the Coke bandwagon. One of my few popular opinions. What are your thoughts on all this?
I would have called you an RC guy. So, I really don't know much about open access other than the fact that we used to be open access back in 1995 when we first started with dial-up. It was fundamentally, I'm thinking a very similar thing. The question I always have is for operators is how do you differentiate yourself? What prevents a bigger operator to come in, get onto the network, do the old gas station model where you charge next to nothing, suck in all the customers. Those are the kind of operational questions I've always had. Net, do you end up with more or less than a single operator? My gut feels you probably end up with the same penetration.
I want to pause before we talk about you asked what differentiates, and I think we're all saying that on open access we're expecting roughly the same thing in terms of the number of subscribers, that there's not a significant advantage, and I to me that seems like it's dependent on the marketing, and I would expect that on a network like Utopia you have some number of companies that are really good at marketing and some that are really bad. I mean, that was part of the problem back in the day. I think you had, Kim, right? Was that you had companies that didn't have the right incentives to market, and so the open access network struggled because of that.
Well, I think that there's more reasons why they struggled than the ISP marketplace, but I do think that not all ISPs are created the same, and some choose to approach the marketing very differently. But I think the ones that do market or have brand awareness, as you would like to say, Chris, are usually ones with the higher take rates.
What's the old adage? If you can't beat them on product, you beat them on brand. And to me, brand it's two things. It's one, have you heard of us? But it's two, it's that feeling someone gets when they hear your company name. Do they hate you? Or do they like you? Are they indifferent? It's a two-parter there. And marketing is part of raising your brand awareness, but there are absolutely ways to separate yourself from 20 ISPs, which we have. And I think in this industry where there's a lot of engineer and technical, very intelligent people, that's not my background. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a technical person. I'm a people person. So the marketing and branding is very intuitive to me. And what am I at the end of the day? I'm a brand because we're all selling the same thing. And that's my job, is to spread the good word.
I do have a comment coming in from my bestie via text. He wants to know that you don't know what brand is, Chris, but you know Yiddish. I'm just saying.
The Yiddish have great jokes, and so that's what I'm interested in. So then Travis was actually asking about other ways to differentiate. It seems to me that we are not seeing significant differentiation. That was discussed on the panel, Kim, is that we don't see significant differentiation. One of the things the panel came to, and I want to go to you first, Doug, because I feel like you've been quiet here, is that on open access, kind of like the opening salvo is the most important. Basically, your chance to grow your market share comes in grabbing new customers, not grabbing an open access customer of a different ISP. And I'm curious how you react to that.
Well, let's use Aaron's example. He wasn't there in the beginning. And so the answer, that's not necessarily true. The word that no one used here, except that Kim said it once, is sales. Marketing is fine, but I've always differentiated marketing, which is a passive process, emails, billboards, you name it, from sales, which is you talk to people. And that, to me, that's sales. And so the ISPs who are good at it actually talk to people and go, here's why you, they don't send them an email, and they don't, they don't do it on social media. They
And
actually
this is,
talk to people.
yeah, and I think, Doug, that's a good point. This is how I always say marketing and branding is kind of the umbrella over the sales department, right? So you're
Yeah,
almost
yes.
providing cover to close the sale. Yeah.
But
Air
in
support.
an open access network, if you have one or two companies who actually talk to the people, then they're going to get most of the customers. They're going to be the ones who succeed. I have no idea that that's who Aaron is. So,
But I think Aaron actually, I think I'm still correct, because I'm incapable of thinking otherwise. But Aaron suggested to me that that you're the customers that you are getting, Aaron, I think, are probably people that are new to Utopia rather than existing Utopia customers that are coming over to you. Do you have any sense of that? If you want to share it, if you want to just shout trade secret, I'm good with that too.
Absolutely. We intentionally do not target our competitors on an open access network. I think that harms both of us. It's one, I don't want to get into a pissing contest with the other ISPs. I'm focused on taking customers away from the the cable company, the CenturyLinks. You know what I mean? They're a lot easier to convert as well, because honestly, most of the people we compete with on the open access networks, they're pretty good, and we're selling the same thing. So what am I really offering this person here? So no, most of our customers do not come from other ISPs on the networks.
And Travis, any last thoughts on this before we move on to Kentucky?
Nope. I guess I have none.
Is that a Southern accent that you were just doing?
that was not.
Okay.
Let's just
That
pretend
was-
my mic cut out
that-
weirdly. It's a technical glitch. Kentucky has a network, Kentucky Wired. Now I'm in my head. And Kentucky Wired is an interesting network that is actually, I think, was conceived 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. And this is something where I feel like Travis is going to be like, I told you so, in that it was a network that I think was a brilliant idea in conception, rushed into practice because of a changing political climate with a new administration coming in, and which is, I think, something that Travis always keeps an eye out for and reminds us about, the challenge of government changing. And the idea was that the network would connect all of the basically all the people that AT&T was not serving well, all the schools, the libraries, the health clinics, state departments, all kinds of things like that. States have a significant number of contracts. They often overpay to incumbent providers to get comparatively slow service as to what they would get from an open market. And so Kentucky Wired was going to do that, and they were going to connect every county to an open access fiber optic network that would create competition, create all kinds of connections for local ISPs to use as backhaul, and everyone would be super happy. We'll talk about why that didn't happen, but just so people are aware, right now, there's 240 health clinics and hospitals on the network, 634,000 K through 12 students, so some smaller number of schools, presumably. Kentucky has a remarkable number of counties, and so they probably do have a lot of small schools, the way the state is laid out, but 44 different internet service providers serving tens of thousands of residents, apparently, according to this article, are currently served through Kentucky Wired. There was so many different problems that happened along the way. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on there because Travis was asking about it. But Doug, you probably followed it closer than any of us. What am I leaving out?
Well, first off, I would call it a wholesale network because they don't have any retail customers. So they sell to ISPs basically, and that was the whole purpose of it. And all these ISPs were already there. They were people like Aaron, Wireless Network or whatever. They jumped on this network, and they've done a fabulous job. But you're right. It started out terrible. They thought they had enough money to build a giant set of rings around the state, and they only got a third way through, and they ran out of money. I mean, this whole thing from the beginning just didn't go well. Um,
Well, let me
but
fill
but
some context that I failed, because
yes,
that's important to explain. So the state owns the network, and they have a
yes,
long-term, super long-term, like what, 50-year, 40-year contract, 30-year contract. Anyway, I think it's 30 or more
yeah.
years with Macquarie Capital, which we've talked about maybe once or twice. I think if you look at Macquarie's record of owning infrastructure around the world, it's not something that would make me proud. I also don't feel like I'm super confident about just going out on a limb to talk more candidly about opinions without legal footing.
Like, first of all, what do you read on a Friday night? You're like, well, let me look at somebody's where they've invested in infrastructure around the
You can
world.
only read so many books about old Wilson before you have to switch over to
Woodrow
something else.
Wilson. We haven't had a Woodrow Wilson update in a while. Thanks
No,
for
I mean,
bringing it in.
so I mean, the reason I knew about Macquarie is Macquarie wanted to buy Utopia, and when Utopia was at its lowest ebb, and we thought it might be a good idea. We're trying to figure it out. You know, the Free Utopia's blogger Jesse, I think, was one of the first people to say this would be terrible. And I look back at that, and I came to Macquarie with an open mind. But then when I sort of saw what they had done and learned more about their water projects and things like that, I just felt like they're not the kind of partner that I would want as a local government. You want a partner who wants to succeed with you and is really like invested in winning. You don't want a partner that's trying to figure out how to get every last nickel out of your pocket. And so even if they're good at what they do, you just don't want a partner like that. Kentucky has a partner like that.
You know who lives in the nonprofit world and who lives in the profit world. But
no, but there are for-profit companies that do a good job. Like there's a lot of them. I mean, we talk about them regularly, right? I'll bet Aaron's one of them. You know?
That's the goal, at least.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Travis, when he's working with folks, Travis is like, hey, how can I cover myself to make sure I'm not in too great of a risk? But fundamentally, he's trying to do something. You know, he's more interested in doing cool things than he is trying to figure out how to like get every last dollar so he can, I don't know, get another Tesla and drive by my house, honking the horn, all night long.
Yes.
But jumping in, we didn't tell the rest of the story. So anyhow,
okay, so Doug, so Kentucky
signed
an
operator. Yes.
They signed this contract. They have an operator. That operator, Macquarie, then buys another company and forms a company called Cellcom, which is now the company that we see regularly popping up. But that is a company owned by Macquarie. Sorry, long digression. That's what we do for fun. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. So that company now says they're not making any money, so they're going to walk away at the end of the month. And supposedly that means the network will go dark. That's mind-boggling that with all those people on it, that the state would have a contract that would allow that. I'm aware of 20 to 30 networks during the last 20 years who have gotten into those kind of troubles, and none of those networks ever went dark. Somebody stepped in and kept it running. And if the state doesn't figure out a way to do that, yes.
Overlooking of the contract, Doug? Like
I have to imagine if what they said is true, it's got to be a contract issue. And
well, they were.
Yes.
The impression I got from reading the stories is that they have been in legal battles. I think they may have been in legal battles since day one, because there's all kinds of issues about for instance, there's a big storm. It wipes out a bunch of poles. The state owned the poles. The operator is doing this. Who is responsible for the poles? Is it covered explicitly in the contract? And then what is the rate at which they are fixed? And there's so many things to this. And that's why you need a partner that is not just trying to enrich themselves and actually cares about providing a good service. So that's why I tried to make that point. But to Doug's point, there's this threat that they're going to go dark now, and it's wild.
And that could just be a blackmail threat to get the state to give them more stuff. But if they really go dark, I mean, the list you're at, if they let 44 hospitals go dark, that somebody's going to get $1 billion class action lawsuit.
There's no way to let these go dark.
It's never happened. It's never happened in the country, and we've had some true disastrous partnerships.
Well, and Cellcom operates in 4 different states, including they bought Georgia Public Web that I did not know. And so there's a number of entities they've bought. I have to think that the reputational damage to them would be great if they let this go dark.
That's why they couldn't, because they would lose every bit of any good ongoing business if they let this go dark, I would assume. I mean,
and the article doesn't tell us what their disagreements are. We can't judge them, but to threaten to go dark is just a mind-boggling thing to threaten with. So
that's a good point, Doug. This is only coming from surface that we're looking at it from one side. We need to look at it from both sides to make sure we're seeing all the all the points.
One of
But
the
it
things we have
sounds
seen-
sounds like a Southern fried mess there.
But how would you feel like, I mean, maybe this is a question for Aaron. How would you feel as an ISP that you were dependent on this backhaul provider or wholesale provider and that they were threatening to go dark?
The middle mile.
Yeah.
I would have hoped I was smart enough to have a plan B long before that even got to be there. I mean, we have multiple paths in and out of everywhere we go as much as possible.
Not in Western Kentucky, you wouldn't. This
Yeah.
is it. Yeah.
I'm in the most urban area of Utah, so knock on wood, I guess. But yeah, if they're threatening to go dark, I'd be scrambling for a plan B.
I mean, I'm guessing you'd also be communicating with your customers too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's got to be some best practices here.
Oh, communication with the customers is everything. If there's even a threat of it, I mean, and if it's a political issue, you can even, nudge your customers to start calling their reps or whoever needs to, push some buttons to make the juice flow, so to speak.
I imagine that's happening in Kentucky. Yeah.
I'm going to say this because I think it's on Kentucky for not having a backup plan of who could manage this network if this something happened. Because I think that is, if they own the assets, then they should be prepared for everything at some point. So if they don't have a plan B, in some ways, I think that is on them because they always should have a plan B to make sure everything is up.
I'm
and running.
gonna guess Kentucky owns the fiber and McCory owns the electronics. Is my guess.
Is what that is.
That's my
interesting.
guess.
I'm going to blame Kim because Utopia was having big problems. Kim came in and fixed them. And you should have gone to Kentucky 2 or 3 years ago, and we wouldn't have had this issue.
I hope that my OG bestie, Kimberly, doesn't hear this because she lives in Kentucky and she would love for me to move to Kentucky. I just didn't think that there is room in that state for both of us. So, no, Kentucky is a great state. I hope they get this all resolved. But I mean, being on the Utopia side, I saw these kind of issues before too, where you have two entities, and at the end of the day, the customer is the one who's getting hurt. So you have to make sure. Like, I think that people get their egos or lawsuits or whatever disagreements, and they forget that at the end of the day, the customer is the one who's really hurting.
But this has been going on for 10 years. And I do think, I just feel like it's one of those things that like the state really had a responsibility to try to resolve this. It was a good model. The idea of using all of the money for the schools, the libraries, and others to like get a good connection to every county to be like providing this service and then creating all these other benefits. And they picked a partner that's terrible. From my opinion, and they have this multi-decade contract. And I think, I guess the lesson I would say is that cities really should be careful as to who they're partnering with, and they should have an out anytime there's a change of ownership. There was not in this case, but we've seen that in other cases where cities would pick a partner, and the partner would then, within like a year and a half, would suddenly be bought out by someone else. And we've seen, I think in Colorado, we've seen open access networks basically close down when they were much smaller networks, but they got a change of ownership, and the new owner.
Have we ever seen it this big though, Chris? Have we ever seen a network this big? Yeah.
I mean, this is a very large network, and it's built in an extremely, Kentucky has very high cost to build and very deep poverty in a lot of places. So it is a challenging place to build. It's also been attacked overwhelmingly by the Taxpayer Protection Alliance, among others, as being emblematic of government broadband, as they would call it, or government-owned networks. And that's one of the things that I always find frustrating is that I have deep reservations about states getting involved in this. I feel like the bigger the government entity, the less I would like it involved in controlling internet access type stuff. So
that's probably the lesson learned here. States don't belong in this business. It's too big. So I would say, Doug, ideally what I would like to see would be, I think like the Diamond State Networks approach seems to me pretty good. I don't know if they're working with the state of Arkansas in that way, but states pay so much in telecom. And when I look at what AT&T has been ripping off Wisconsin for, and just the places we've dug in, I got to think that I don't mind
and hire the right people.
Oh, I don't mind states having their own fiber network and putting all their stuff on their own network, but they should never then partner with an outside ISP to run it. Now they have this disaster waiting.
But I think this is where it's coming, that this all makes sense to me in this weird podcast. I actually learned something here today, which is shocking. Thank you,
Oh
Christopher.
gosh, we got to delete. We have to delete this episode. That can't happen.
Yeah,
It's going to kill our reputation. It's going to take us years to climb back.
Tier ones, MSOs, a lot of those guys have never wanted to use backhaul from some of these state-run or muni networks, and now I'm like, duh, why would they? If you could get into the middle of this like disaster, they want to use like the tried and true like private companies who've been out there. And I'm like, this makes sense, because if I was one of those big carriers, I wouldn't want to be in the middle of this with my customers at risk right now.
No, I agree with you, but the question is always not can you outrun the bear, but can you outrun the people that you're with? And the question is, you have a long-term contract with Level 3, and suddenly they're purchased by your competition. I've heard horror stories about all of the companies out there in terms of them not making investments, and so it's like pick your poison, right? And so then I think Aaron's point, coming back to is, do you have a plan B?
Mm-hmm.
Travis, you asked this question originally. You were like, hey, what's up with this Kentucky thing? Are you right now saying, I'm sorry I asked, or are you in aha territory?
No, the only thing that I find ironic is 288 strands of fiber, and it seems like they're using 2 of them. If I would have, I would have liked, where are the other networks running on this fiber backbone? Because if it was me, I would never get into a lit service agreement with a city, but I sure would get into a dark fiber service agreement or an IRU with a public entity. 2 very different things. What it seems like in Kentucky is all you could buy was a lit service. So now if this operator shuts off the ROADMs and everything else, there goes the network, even though the fiber hasn't moved a millimeter.
And for people who are not,
and that's what I sense too, and I think that's what McCrory insisted on.
Is that what happened? Yeah, I don't have an opinion on the operator. I don't know anything about him, but it seems like there was a fundamental contract issue here that ISP should have been able to IRU dark fiber, and then they wouldn't care about anything else.
Travis, I think, and for people who are not as technically sophisticated, getting a lease circuit is like, you might have a contract of some sort, but the whole point of the IRU is that they use the term like indefeasible, or there's other I've heard other similar things. The point of it is that it survives bankruptcy, it survives the end of human civilization. It's like a legal construct that like you are guaranteed for the time period that no matter what happens, you're going to have that thing, right?
Yeah, irrevocable right of use, right, Doug? Basically says that these are yours to use during the period.
The actual word is.
I'm actually kind of surprised.
Actually,
again,
isn't defeasible.
Sorry, did you catch that, Travis? I don't know if you talked over it. Doug, could you just start off with Chris was right and just say what you said?
It actually is indefeasible is the word.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, but irrevocable makes more sense. I agree with you, Travis. Like, it actually, people understand what that means.
That's what indefeasible means.
Are we about to hold hands and start singing Kumbaya with everybody agreeing with each other?
So, and the point of it is that, like,
you are right, indefeasible. I've actually been wrong all these years on that.
But his point's perfect, because if you had dark fiber on this, who cares? Because that would be a contract with the state, not with this operator. You'd be fine. Yeah.
So we're breaking this down that it was a design issue of the network at this point. Yeah, I think I think that after this discussion, it's a design issue.
Yeah.
And I think this comes back to politics to some extent, which is, as someone who thinks that there is an important role for governments, particularly local governments in this place, politics cannot influence this. And trying to rush through a contract negotiation because your term is about to be up is dangerous. Particularly, I rail all the time about decisions that were made 150 years ago about railroads are slowing down Travis and other people, right? These decisions matter, and we need to be careful about how we use the power. Well,
oh, it's coming. I'm so happy.
Aaron, you might not want to be associated with this next part.
Good luck, Kentucky. Let's see what we got here. Okay.
All right, let's move on.
All right, we're about to wrap up here, and I think we're going to bring Rye on for an explanation of. So Rye is up for. He's recently had his review, and he was trying to find ways of getting in my better graces, I think, and so he dug into this.
This is how he gets into your better graces, is doing this.
Yeah, he wanted to butter me up for his review, I think.
Oh my goodness. So I regret everything that's happening right now.
I think actually what happened was I said, Rye, do you think AI would write me a biography?
Yeah. So well, I think we all know Chris is an uncontrollable narcissist. I'm ashamed to admit that. I guess I should move myself over there. When the water wars start in a couple of years and I get hauled up for using a couple of cycles to ask ChatGPT to put together a biography of Christopher Mitchell, this is what's going to happen. So I reluctantly give you.
You have got to be
I'm
kidding
gonna be a
me.
redhead. I'm down with him. It's Ron Weasley combined with me.
Are you a love novel? Is that what this is?
The title of the book is
he's more of a terrorist. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
it's called Fiber and
Freedom
Fury.
fighter.
The
Yes, freedom
Relentless-
fighter, 100%.
The Relentless Rebellion of Christopher Mitchell. I threw a view link in chat for folks that are so inclined to look at it, but
I appreciate that. The last one I did, it said the pointless rebellion. So this is way improved.
I like the fiber in your hand that is just coming out.
It's a Wolverine fiber.
Right,
very
you missed the
specialized.
chapter on the peace camp. I'll bring that up. I'll give you the details on that later. So
the short version of the overview is in an America tangled in red tape and throttled by monopolies, one man has dared to defy the telecom titans. Fiber and Fury tells the untold story of Christopher Mitchell, the policy wonk turned digital freedom fighter whose crusade to bring fast, affordable internet to all has rattled boardrooms, inspired city halls, and ignited a grassroots revolution in broadband policy. I've highlighted some of the better bits, I think, in there, but there's some, it talks about one bespeckled Minnesota policy expert. So I think I did a pretty good job there. Chapters of titles, The Quiet Radical, Against the Machine. This plays exactly into what Chris would have loved for somebody to have written. It's got a chapter on Connect This. Yeah.
So what we've learned today is that both me and Christopher Mitchell are inspirations.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've inspired
Travis, you realize we're third and fourth chair here, Travis. You get that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the fourth chair in a 3-chair band, just so we're clear. This is awesome. Will there be the ability to get a unsigned version of this?
Great question.
But Alexa has
Those would be
made a
very
great
rare.
comment. When has Chris ever worn a tie? Because I don't think I've ever seen you wear a tie.
Oh, you have for sure.
And the coat, and yeah.
Nick, we only have suggested chapters. I don't think we have the biography. We did have a question about which like AI would allow us to write a full 200-page biography on it, because I think most of them aren't going to do that much work, but so.
Well, they actually let you do one chapter at a time. You can do that. So yeah.
All right. Well, the whole team can be on it then, Rye. We have a new priority.
Drop everything.
I love it.
All right.
Well done.
It's been a fun episode. We actually got to everything on the rundown, I think. So that is successful. Aaron, thank you for joining us for your your as far as we know, galactic podcast debut.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I heard you do bets. We're just talking Kentucky. Are we doing Kentucky Derby bets?
We'll see. We like to choose bets that are hard to evaluate who won.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
fair enough.
I think
However, if you can bring Woodrow Wilson into it, you got to get something. So.
And Aaron, just to be clear,
Woodrow Wilson.
well, Chris does not pay his bets either, just so you're clear. So
Yes, yes,
this is so you can bet anything. Yeah.
I will say not through lack of apparently trying.
I got the check.
What are your horse names from Alexa?
I feel like this could go in a dangerous direction, so we should probably pull it to a wrap. It's been fun. I thought the discussion on open access was terrific, Kim. We'll definitely have to share that out there. Doug says that he learns something from every episode, and sometimes I go 45 or minutes or 60 minutes into it trying to figure out what Doug learned today. But I think that was a really good discussion.
Chris,
Like, you're welcome.
Chris, that was Doug being nice, just so you know. Yeah, Doug has learned nothing in 113 episodes of this. This
We
is
love
his
open
make-a-wish
access.
contribution. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, Aaron, we wish you luck out there. Hope to see you on an open access network near us in the future.
We're trying.
And then for everyone else, hope you have a great weekend. We're heading into spring. It's a good time, and we'll see if Starship gets up there in the next week. I hope it gets up there in 8 days, Travis, just so you can lose but still be kind of right. So
Perfect. Yes.
I'm rooting for Starship, but rooting against you. So we'll see.
Hey, fair enough. I'm undefeated so far. It'd be an honor for you to win something, Chris.
Well, like I said, we have 5 more months before I would actually win. So we shall see. Everyone, it's been a fun episode of Connect This.